Welcome back to my channel. I'm James, and this channel's for everyone worldwide who loves great movies and great TV series that are released all over the world. Today's a big review we're going to go into, and this is a big sci-fi movie that came out here in 2021. And this is one I have not seen until I just dived into it to do this review. So today we're going to be deep diving into Dune on 4K Ultra HD and Blu Ray. Now this one's going to be a very unique review. I'm going to be doing my exclusive 4K versus Blu Ray image comparisons. And that's something I do exclusively here on my YouTube channel. What I do is I go on to each of the discs, the Blu Ray, the 4K, and I get all the images and comparisons side by side between the two of them to show you what the differences between the 4K and the Blu Ray are so that you can know which one of these you're going to want to buy, if this is something you're going to want to spend your money on. And that's where I'm going to dive into on this review as well. I'm going to go into and tell you my thoughts on the movie, give you my total review score at the end of this review as well. And that's where I sum up basically image, sound quality, if there was issues on this disc, the good, the bad, and give it all a total sum up review score at the end. And that's something I do at every single review. So that way you know how this kind of compares to previous reviews and previous releases I've done. So if you bought some of those, you can kind of compare it to see, hey, how is this going to stack up with other 4Ks or Blu-rays I bought before? Now, when I'm going through this 4K versus Blu-ray image comparison, there's a lot of interesting things I did find out when I was going through this. Now, as most of you know that have watched my YouTube channel for a while, because of how exclusive a lot of this stuff is that I do, I don't use other people's data, I do all of this myself with my own technology, which takes a lot of time, money, cost, and hard work to get all these together. That's why these reviews are such a big deal. Now, if you're not subscribed yet, go down there and make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you don't miss out on any of these exclusive reviews, special or early reviews that I come out with. That's something you're going to want to make sure to do, is to go down to hit that subscribe button. When I'm going through this and doing the image comparisons though, I'm going to also talk to you about the differences between this Dune and this Dune, which is the David Lynch one that I previously reviewed earlier last year on the channel. This is the Arrow Video 4K restoration and remaster of Dune that was done by David Lynch. And I'm also going to talk and briefly go into what the differences are between some of the Dune TV series. Now, because I have all of the versions of Dune that are available, I have all the TV series on Blu-ray, the miniseries, obviously the David Lynch movie, and now obviously the new Dune that's come out recently. So my experience with Dune is quite diverse because I have all the different versions of Dune that have come out. I've experienced them all, watched them all multiple times, and I have a lot of different opinions about all of the different versions that have come out. So this one will be a compilation review also, kind of talking about the movie itself and how it stacks up to the TV series, the miniseries, David Lynch's version, what I liked, what I disliked, and there are some dislikes about the new Dune that I'm sure a lot of people haven't talked about. And this is something I found a lot of things after I watched it. I then went and kind of read up on somewhat of other people are saying about it. And I found on the new Dune, there's a lot of people that are waxing lyrical about the new Dune. And it's not that I disliked it, I did enjoy it, but I will think you're going to find some things when I point them out that are going to change your viewpoint altogether about this new Dune versus many of the multiple iterations I was talking about here just a minute ago. So there's some interesting things I think you're going to be really surprised about this as we go through this. Going into this Dune here, we're going to start off with the 4K versus Blu-ray image comparison. I'm going to show you these image comparisons as we're going along and as I'm talking about the movie so you can see above for your own eyes a lot of the differences. And we're going to start off by showing the Blu-ray here where it shows one of the main characters, the gal obviously, and it's going to show her face here. Now, you'll notice here when I go to show the 4K here above, there is some drastic differences. Throughout the movie, there was varying qualities throughout it. Some of them more subtle, some of them more drastic like the image you're going to see above. There really is some drastic differences between the 4K version and the Blu-ray that really made the 4K stand out as altogether a better package. Now, as you probably noticed in those screenshots above, keep in mind, as I've always talked about over the years, when I upload these screenshots, when it goes through the 4 different softwares to do special effects, compression, and then it obviously goes through YouTube's compressions and algorithms, YouTube does not allow HDR, 10 plus, 10, or Dolby Vision. So those images you see above of the 4K representation, as I've talked about over the years, they are always dumbed down. So what you're seeing in this video above in those screenshot representations are only standard HDR. They are not HDR10, they are not HDR10 plus, they are not Dolby Vision. Even though I upload them with Dolby Vision, that's how I record and then that's how I upload them, YouTube's algorithm simply doesn't have that compression or availability. So it takes my content, even though it's filmed in 4K, special effects are in 4K, all the images are done in Dolby Vision 4K, and they're put on there, it compresses them down and changes them slightly so that you can see them here on this video. So keep that in mind, that's not done by me, that's all done by YouTube's algorithm. Well, based on that, the 4K images you're seeing above will only look better if you do have Dolby Vision or HDR10 that your Blu Ray player, your 4K player basically, can display on your TV, and then your TV can display that image as well. There is a drastic color shift in the 4K versus the Blu Ray as well. And that all goes back into numerous parts of it. Basically, with that Dolby Vision and HDR10 representation, obviously I like the Dolby Vision presentation the best for this movie, but the HDR10 presentation was no slouch either. It did look good as well. And so when you see that, there's a drastic difference in like the facial tones, and even the blue in the eyes look different. And I'll show you as we're going along here another image here. Now this is of the crashed spaceship. This is obviously after their spaceship crashes in the desert in Dune. And they're getting out of it, and you see the spaceship crashed in the basically sand there, and then the rocks behind them. You'll notice a drastic difference between even the color of the sky being slightly more like blue and greenish hued. That's because of the more basically shades of different colors that HDR has available for it that the Blu-ray doesn't. Even when you look at the sand and you look at the comparison between that Blu-ray screenshot you see above and the 4K of that sand, there's so much more shades in the 4K presentation than what you see in the Blu-ray presentation. And you're gonna see that throughout as I'm showing you screenshot after screenshot through this review. You're gonna see there's multiple different things. Even though maybe you say, hey, the Blu-ray doesn't look horrible there, it doesn't look horrible. I mean, it has some good detail to it and things like that, but nowhere near as good as the HDR or the Dolby Vision presentation on this with the 4K presentation. Now I do want to talk about what they did specifically for this film that I did really love. And the director in this, again, I think did a great job with the film, and I'll get into my thoughts about the film a little bit later, but I want to talk about how he filmed this specifically. So it is a native 4K 2160p representation on this 4K, but it's very interesting, and it's a really, I think it's a great story to tell you how they actually came about with the image that you're seeing on this 4K. Basically, the director of this Dune wanted to mix some of the like older Dune movies like themes behind it with how it was filmed into a more modern digital presentation of how it's filmed. So they did a really unique presentation to conserve basically what David Lynch did. He had a lot of appreciation. Dennis, the director in this movie for the new 2021 Dune, really liked a lot of the things that the original Dune by David Lynch had in it. So he wanted to harken back to that by giving a little bit of the film grain effect of what this review that I did of Dune had in it. And if you haven't checked out this review after you get done with this one, you're going to want to go check out this review, because to be honest with you, after watching this one, I'm glad I own both. They are drastically different, and I do really appreciate David Lynch's vision of Dune, even though I liked the new one as well. But we'll get to this a little bit later about the comparison about this as well. But just talking about how this was filmed, the new one, versus this original one by David Lynch. So what Dennis did in this is he actually went in and he took the film, he filmed it at 4.5K digital, basically, and he took that digital image, transferred it, and scanned it out to 35mm film stock. Okay, so he took it and put it onto film stock from the 4.5K digital onto film stock, which is about the first time I've really heard of this being done. And I thought the process was such a unique idea once I researched and learned about it. Basically, then once he put it onto that film stock, that was to give it a little bit of film grain. He didn't want it to seem so out there waxy looking that it did have a little bit of film grain, and I really appreciate it because I really do like having, it doesn't have to be such heavy film grain, but I do like the film grain appearance in it because I'm a child of the 80s and watching all these old movies that I collect and love over the years. I did like that. Then what he did is he took that basically 35mm film stock, then rescanned it again into digital and did it at a native 4K, which is what's on this. So it went from a 4.5K digital to 35mm film stock to get that, like, basically, in my opinion, a more natural look. And that's what he talks about in this, that he agrees that film grain, just having a little bit of film grain in it, just adds that more natural look to the film. And I loved that part of it Then they scanned it back into digital. So it basically isn't super heavy film grain. It's very light in it. It's very, very light. You have to actually look and pay attention and you'll notice it. But as a cinephile over the years, I love little bits of history about films in this. And that's where I really appreciated what the director did just in that. It shows his love for films himself and how much work he put into making sure that this film harkened back to the original while also being its own masterpiece on its own. Now, what you'll notice as I've been talking, going through those screenshots above, the best version by far to watch this on is the 4K. The Blu-ray, in comparison, when I did them side by side, as you probably already noticed for yourself in those screenshots above, even without seeing it in full Dolby vision for yourself, when you see that on your own in comparison to the Blu-ray, there's a sharp difference between the two in most scenes. Some more subtle, but overall throughout the whole film, the 4K presentation in this 4K Ultra HD is the only way to view this epic sci-fi. Now, as always, I will have the link for this listed in the description section right below this video. I'm actually going to link out all these different versions of Dune that I'm talking about. So I'll have them all linked down if you go down to the description section. I will also have it as a pinned post in the comment section. So if you're going to pick this up, make sure to go down there and click through one of those links. It takes you straight out to Amazon, so that way you can pick up your copy. It's actually the same price as everyone else. So if you're going to pick this up, I will have those linked down in the description section and as a pinned comment right below. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the film and my thoughts on it here. I actually did think that the film was well done. I enjoyed it. Though I will tell you there was some things negatively wise. At the beginning of this review, I kind of talked a little bit about how a lot of people are waxing lyrical about this, and basically they're calling it the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't really think it is, and here's why. It's not that I didn't like it. I did like the movie. I actually thought it was very well done. There's things about it I thought were better than some of the other versions of Dune, but with that caveat, I did think there was some things that were not as well done as some of the previous versions, whether it was the TV versions had things in it or David Lynch's version. I actually felt there was some things that I think are going to surprise you, and once I tell you about them here, I think it's going to open your eyes, and anytime you watch this movie, you're really going to notice them now because of all the different versions I've watched and different things I've liked about the different versions. There are little things about each one that I've disliked and think could have been changed. I think the beginning, basically hour and 45 minutes or so, is really well done. It keeps you entertained. I think the story building, the set building was great, except for one thing that's an ongoing thread since the beginning of the movie all the way through the end that I feel like was harkened on way too much. And it's simply that they kept basically repeating and pounding into you the dream sequences. Now, here's my thoughts, okay? They could have taken out easily 45 to 50 minutes of the movie, and in my opinion, it would have been a better paced movie. Here's why. The dream sequences that they kept repeating over and over and over again, some of them being with the same cinematography, the same scene, just playing it over and over again. We got the idea, in my opinion. I mean, unless literally you don't pay attention in a movie, they kind of just were slapping us on the head, kind of like we were all idiots, playing that same scene over and over again. If you go back and watch the movie now, and you start counting how many times he has the dream sequence, and they talk about the dream sequence, and everybody brings up the dream sequence, I really felt like they kind of went over that way too many times, and it was way too repetitive. They could have easily cut out 15 to 20 minutes of those dream sequences, and we all still would have gotten the same idea for the film, and it would have been better paced. Now, talking about that better pacing, there's also where there was way too long of a time of them wandering in the desert. Then with dream sequences again, and talking about dream sequences again, when he gets with his mom and they're in the tent in the sand after they've escaped, and they're going through the dream sequences again, and then he's talking about it, she's talking about it again. Then later on, he's having dream sequences again while he's walking through the desert, and more walking through the desert. And if you look at kind of like David Lynch's or some of the TV series, they did have those scenes where they walk through the desert, but they were very short. It showed the idea they were wandering, then it would show a couple days go by, a couple of seconds, not on and on. And if you actually time it out, man, it was actually like 20 minutes of desert walking with dream sequences, and then throughout the movie, another 25 minutes of dream sequences thrown in, kind of repeating the same things, maybe adding a little bit difference in the dream sequences, but they could have summed that up and put those little bit of differences into maybe 1 or 2, instead of like, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7, 8 dream sequences throughout repeating the same thing. So that's my only harking on the movie, that honestly now, if you really think about it, I'm sure you're sitting there thinking to yourself, yeah, actually, there was a lot of wandering in the desert and repeating the same thing over. And I don't know if that was because they were trying to extend the length of the movie, because they wanted to be able to do sequels after it, like they didn't actually finish it. Like David Lynch's basically kind of wraps things up. It goes through the movie quite fast paced. And if you watch these two, after you get done with this one and then you go back and watch David Lynch's version, even though David Lynch's version is a long movie, it definitely has a faster pace than this Dune does. It goes through a lot more content than what this does, which is what they're going to go through the rest of the movies. And basically if they do a trilogy or a 1-part and 2-part, however they're going to end up doing that, the fact of it is they could have condensed this movie a lot more, which I understand that David Lynch has cut out a lot of things to make it fit that runtime. But at the same time, there were some things that I felt like they didn't really add anything to the story. Repeating that dream sequence and them walking through the desert over and over again. And then, like I said, that dream sequence, all I can say is how many times they repeated it. My wife, she kept bringing it up saying, man, I like the movie, but holy cow, she's like, they keep repeating the same dream sequence, trying to tell us the same thing slightly differently. Sometimes they would show, oh, slightly different character, but saying the same thing. Oh, he's the one. Oh, he's the one. And to be honest with you, we got it, okay? And that's just my opinion on it, that was my downside of it, that I really felt like this version of Dune just kind of repeated too much stuff. So basically, that's my harping on the movie, that I felt like it could have been better paced. Now, some of you might have enjoyed that part of it, and I'm not saying it's the end of the world, but I did just want to point out to you, because of all the versions I've watched of Dune over the years, the TV miniseries, the movies, that's where the one thing about this that I did think was a downside of it. I loved the rest of it. I thought the costumes were amazing, sets were amazing. The great ensemble cast was amazing in it. I did like the score, though I will say I did like David Lynch's 80s score just slightly better. It's not that I didn't like the orchestral score in this. I did think it was well done. It's just there was something that about that 80s score from David Lynch that I really, really still like to this day. So I feel like the 80s David Lynch one just had a leg up on the score on that. Now that's to each person's preference. Some people are going to love the orchestrated score more than like the synth score that was in David Lynch's. And that's each of our preferences. So that's the nice thing though is we don't have to choose. We can own both of them, watch them both for the different things we like about it. Though David Lynch's Dune goes through a lot more content than this does, because this stops way early on, basically so they could make sequels to it. Which is kind of, again, one of the downsides, is that I noticed that it felt like they were trying to expand the runtime by, like I said, adding in just extended sequences of kind of nothing. Now, other than that, I did like the movie. I think that the acting in it was great. I thought it had phenomenal special effects. I really liked the slight film grain in it and what the director did with it. And I am excited to see the sequel, what they do with it, and go from there. I'm just hoping it's a little better paced going forward, because I do feel like a little bit sharper pacing, a little bit better editing would have made this film much more enjoyable for me, especially for my wife. She sat there and said, hey, I really felt like they kept repeating the same thing. So that's just the nitpicking that we did have on it. Otherwise, it is an epic, just grand sci-fi film that really is well done. Now, if you enjoy these videos here on my YouTube channel and you enjoy the content I make and create here, I ask that you please consider giving this video a super thanks. Right down below, there's an actual button that looks like this here. And when you give a super thanks, that helps to support my YouTube channel here. It helps me to be able to pay for the software, all of the technology and things that I use to create these 4K comparison videos that are so special and unique. And that's where it kind of comes into play. I don't have Patreon. I don't use a Patreon account. The only way I can continue to make these videos is through the support of you, the viewers and subscribers that watch my videos here. So if you enjoy this content that I create and you enjoy these videos, even though they're free to watch on YouTube, they're not free for me to create. They cost me a lot of time, hard work, and money. So if you enjoy these, please give a super thanks right below. Also, don't forget to give this video a like and a thumbs up for me. Click that subscribe button and the bell notification, and I put the links for this exact set in the description and a pinned comment in the comment section below. So if you're gonna pick this up and buy this, make sure to click through that. It takes you straight out to Amazon at no cost to you. That helps support the YouTube channel just a little bit as well. And I appreciate all your love and support. All right, now diving back into this, you do get a nice slipcover with it right now. I really did like the artwork on this and the slipcover on the 4K way better than that Blu-ray. As you've seen in that Blu-ray over there, I think the Blu-ray's blue cover for the Blu-ray, it just isn't as nice looking as the dark with the dark brown and the gold shiny thing through it. I just really like that. It says Dune on the side here. And then on the back here, it obviously has all of your data and specs on it. Now here's your front cover, back cover's the same. And when you get inside here, you have your 4K disc. You have your digital copy code here, which is a Movies Anywhere digital copy of the 4K of this version of the movie as well. And then you have your Blu-ray here, and it's got like the sandworm and the artwork that was on the wall in their basically kingdom when they were there. And I really like that. I like the disc artwork on it as well. It's very well done. Now talking about the 4K disc here, it's on a BD100 and it is region free. They did not region lock it in any shape or form. So if in your country you didn't get this and you want to get this, as I said, that link's down in the description section below. Now, the Blu-ray on this, it was registered and listed as region locked. It is not. I tested it on all 4 of my Blu-ray players, my Xbox, my Series X, then I obviously did it on my region A, my region B, my region C. The actual Blu-ray on this is region free as well. So if you buy this that I have linked below and ship it anywhere in the world, it is a region free set so that you do not have to worry about either disc being region locked. So the special features that are on this, you can watch it anywhere in the world. This set does have the Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. Now, talking about audio options, you do get English Dolby Atmos, and you do get English Dolby True HD 7.1, English Dolby Digital 5.1. Then you also get Dolby Atmos in German, Italian, and those are all Dolby Atmos as well. Then you get French, Dolby Digital 5.1, Spanish, and Hindi, and a bunch of other audio mixes. I'm not going to go through them all, but those are the ones that I just thought I'd point out because that's most of the ones that I get asked about. Subtitle-wise, you get all your subtitles. You get English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, and there was 9 others on top of that that for length of the video I didn't write down. But that's just to give you a rough idea. Basically, any subtitle option you're probably looking for, it's included on both discs as well. Now, as I said, Dune came out in 2021, and it is rated PG-13, and it runs 155 minutes. So that's where I was talking about that length of the film. Now, talking about errors on it, there was a couple of errors that I did run into. They were minor hiccups, but as always, I will always bring them up in a review no matter whether something's sent to me or not. Just like this, I had to go out and buy this myself for this review. But the fact of it is there was a couple of small errors. Now, audio errors existed at 1 hour and 44 minutes roughly, and at 1 hour and 54 minutes roughly. The audio on the Dolby Atmos mix basically turned very garbled. It basically turned very like electronic sounding. I tested it on both of my audio systems. I have 2 different TVs with 2 different audio systems that play Dolby Atmos, and both of them had the same error at the same time. So it's very short, just kind of like their voices sound very electronic, and the background noise was very like that, and then it went right back to normal. Same thing at the 1 hour and 54 minutes. I think that one was only like maybe 10 to 20 seconds, very short, and then it went right back. So it might be my disc. I only have 1 copy to test. I didn't have another one to test, but that is something to listen for and see if you had the same thing in your set. It might just be my disc was mismanufactured. As always, when I get a set, I clean the disc first before I watch them. Because I watch and review these 4Ks on both my Panasonic UB820s, and I have 2 of them, I'm able to test them both on each of them to make sure it's not one player having an issue or another. And I have other 4K players that I tested on as well, playing through the same sound system. And both on my LG 4K player and that, it didn't matter. They all had the same error at around the same time. So that's just a little hiccup on there. It wasn't a big deal. You could still hear it. It just sounded kind of like robotic almost for a few seconds. So that's kind of just something that I did notice in it. That was a downside just slightly on it. Otherwise, the rest of it played flawlessly. And I will be honest, visual quality for this had one of the nicest visual pictures I've seen in a 4K release yet. And that's where I kind of talked about the difference between the 4K and the Blu-ray. As you've seen, as we've been talking through this whole review, the image quality between the 4K and the Blu-ray is downright beautiful on the 4K. There isn't a reason I could see anybody buying that Blu-ray release when you see the difference between the 4K versus that Blu-ray. Hands down, this is close to one of those reference quality discs. Now, the only reason why I don't say it is 100% reference quality is because of the couple little bit of audio glitches it had. Those would be about it that I feel like was holding it back. Otherwise, visual-wise, it was hands down a gorgeous picture. My wife herself, she said it was gorgeous. I thought it was gorgeous. It's probably one of the best looking discs I've seen yet. And that's going to go into my review score later on as well. I mean, honestly, the HDR with Dolby Vision and then HDR10, depending on which your TV and Blu-ray player can play, it is an absolutely stunning picture, and the 4K in this is the only way to own this. Now, getting to my review score here. My review score with my thoughts on the film, the gorgeous presentation in this, Obviously, the small little audio hiccups, having all the Dolby Atmos mix, the Dolby Vision presentation, HDR10, and this being such a great and well done film other than the pacing issues that I felt like, as I said, they could have edited it down a little bit. My review score for this is an outstanding 9.5. So as I said earlier in the review, those things do affect my review score, but overall when I got done and I sit and sum it up, because it was such a gorgeous presentation, just a really gorgeous picture that even if you didn't like the film, it's just beautiful to watch. In 4K, the Blu-ray, is nowhere near as anywhere good looking. I mean, it's on a BD50 versus a BD100 for the 4K, and then the 4K with the Dolby Vision and the Dolby Atmos, it's downright stunning. So in that case, this gets a 9.5. No, I don't think it's like people that are waxing lyrical giving it a 10, saying it's the greatest thing that's ever come out. And they're saying heck, on the front here, it says awe-inspiring masterpiece. I mean, it's good. I enjoyed it, but I do think David Lynch's Dune, some of the TV series, the parts of those, I do think there's good things in those that were done a little bit better than this story-wise, pacing-wise, that I really felt like this one, they really drug out the end. That last 45-50 minutes could have been condensed to maybe about 15 minutes, and that would have made the film better paced, and overall I felt like would have made the film, in my opinion, a better film, because they aren't going and finishing the story up in this. They're giving another sequel and then possibly one after that if they drag it out to 3 films. And so knowing that, they kind of drug that out just to kind of make the film longer, I felt like. So in that case, that's why this gets a 9.5. That and the 2 audio issues that I ran into, the little hiccups in it. I did love the film. I'm glad to have it in my collection. Though I do really think if you have not seen David Lynch's Dune, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Of the other Dunes that are available, the TV miniseries and then the sequel TV miniseries and then David Lynch's Dune, I really do think you need to go watch my review of Arrow Video's David Lynch's Dune and consider picking that up and watching it, because I think you'll be surprised how much he did really mimic or copy in this that was in David Lynch's Dune, but David Lynch covered a lot more ground and showed a lot more a feeling of the technology and what was going on with other factions and the time period and everything like that in David Lynch's than really Dennis did, the director, in this for the new 2021 Dune. So there's some pluses and minuses. I liked them both. I don't know, if I had to pick between all of these, I'd probably say the TV series were maybe the lower end version, so not the greatest parts. So these add a lot to it, but they're not the greatest or best versions of Dune. Then you'd have David Lynch's that has a lot of really good things. And I think the story had a lot going for it. I think the acting was great and it had a big ensemble piece. And I think it did a lot of technology things that I really enjoyed, that I really thought were really well done in this. Then you have the more modern, which is the new Dune in 2021. And that obviously I think is the best of them. But I wouldn't give up David Lynch's for any reason. I really do think David Lynch's still holds well and stands well on its own 2 feet. That I don't think in any way this replaces David Lynch's. I'm still going to watch this and still enjoy this. But I do enjoy the new one as well. And I think for picture-wise, obviously the new Dune is downright gorgeous. So, but I do like how he hearkened with that, really adding the film grain in. I really did appreciate that. So that it gave a little bit of hearkening back to this Dune. So overall, 9.5, great review score for this. This is a must-buy 4K release. If you haven't seen it yet, I went into it not seeing it till it came out on 4K Ultra HD so I could get the ultimate viewing presentation to be able to review this for all of you. I know all of you have heavily requested me to do this as a 4K versus Blu-ray image comparison. So I hope all of you have really enjoyed the hard work and seen the hard work I put behind this. It took me a long time to get this together, as most of you have probably known with how long it took me to get this out for all of you. So if you enjoyed this review, please give a super thanks down below. If you're gonna pick this up, make sure to go down to one of those links, click out to Amazon. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a like for me. Start that conversation in the comment section below and let me know what your thoughts are about this. If you've seen the movie, now that I kind of pointed out the things I felt about it, how some of it could have been edited down for better pacing and maybe not hitting us in the head so much with telling us about the dream sequence. But let me know about your thoughts about that down in the comment section below, what you thought about this. If you're gonna get it on Blu-ray or 4K, I'll have the Blu-ray and 4K listed down there as well, depending on which version you wanna get, but the 4K is where it is at. If you really want an ultimate viewing pleasure for just an absolutely awesome sci-fi movie, you're gonna wanna get it on 4K. That's the ultimate way to view this. And if you're not subscribed yet, you really need to be subscribed because you're missing out on all of this exclusive content. Go down there and hit that subscribe button and that bell notification. As always, I hope all of you have a blessed day. I had a fun time, and I'll have more exciting content coming out very soon.